Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Burning Hits Football. This is our playoff preview, and we're going to do a recap of basically our preseason ideas of what the playoffs are going to be. We're going to do some daily fantasy, and we're going to look into what our predictions are for this year. So we're going to run into daily fantasy, and Hinty, you have the numbers from last week. How did we do?
Last week you put up 103.06, and I put up 131.68. Your big winners were like your big point people were Debo and Darnell Mooney, who put up 28 and 27 points. And then my big winners were Singletary, who put up 25. Cooper Kupp, who put up 29, St. Brown, who put up 29, and the Washington defense that put up 19.
Yeah, going against the Giants offense. That's a smart play there. Yeah, daily fantasy, tough one for me. Not the best, but Hinty came out winning some money, some big money. So how about, do you want to we'll go position by position for this week?
Yeah, we'll do position by position again.
Okay. So for quarterback, I really try to stay cheaper. And I went really cheap with Derek Carr because I just feel like, I know people are worried about the cold weather in Cincinnati, but I feel like Cincinnati doesn't have a great defense. It's still pretty good, but I think Derek Carr should be able to put up points, and basically I'm stacking him with one of his receivers for that portion. What quarterback were you going for, and what other stuff were you sort of interested in picking?
With it being like so few teams, you really have to it's especially for a cash lineup, you really want to pick like the safer players personally. I looked at Josh Allen, but you have like the weather implications, and the first game was just horrendous, and it looks like the weather has a chance of snowing, so I'm not too thrilled. Pat Mahomes has really let me down this year. And I also kind of wanted to go cheaper, so I actually went down to Dak. Dak has kind of he's looked like himself the past 2 weeks, and San Francisco doesn't have the best pass defense, so I went with Dak.
Yeah, I think Dak. I was looking at Joe Burrow as well. Dak, Burrow, and then Carr. Part of me wanted to go with Hurts, but the Tampa Bay run defense just seems like they could blow him out, and it could be just a waste, and you can't really stack with him that well with receivers. Yeah. So I think those three guys were like a lot, because San Francisco's secondary is not great, and then Joe Burrow, he's been on fire, so why not? And not like the Las Vegas pass defense is like amazing. But it's hard to spend money on those risky players at the top when you might get some and you might not get all that much. So we good to move on, or anything else you want to mention?
Nope, let's go ahead and move on to running back.
Running back I had some difficulty with because I was very was not going to pick Najee Harris. Joe Mixon seemed like really expensive. So I actually went all the way down to Elijah Mitchell and chose Mitchell as my top back, just because Dallas, they're all about, the turnovers and the pass defense, and they have a strong statistical rush defense, but I don't think they've played someone like San Francisco. And then also I went with James Conner just because he is money, man. He's just money. He seems to always get a touchdown if he plays. So he's not too expensive, but he's definitely up there. But I felt like those two were at least my strongest. Who'd you pick, and who else were you looking at?
I went with Joe Mixon because I just think that I know he's a lot, but Vegas doesn't have a great great run defense. And Mixon has just had an incredible season. He had a week rest last week, so I think he'll be good to go. And then I also went with Mitchell because he's just so cheap for what you're going to get out of him.
It is crazy how low he is. And yeah, Mixon, the one thing also with that Las Vegas game is it's going to be, I think, 15 degrees or something like that. So it is possible that this becomes sort of a rushing attack. And if they are successful, why stop? They've been passing the last couple of weeks in like crazy amounts just because it's been working, but they could go the same way with that rushing team. Other players I was looking at was like Fournette a little bit, just because he's coming back, but it's a little scary with
Yeah.
how many touches will he get? Is he going to be sharing with Jones and Keyshawn Vaughn? Not sure if Vaughn's back. And part of me want to go for Sanders or Edmonds, but Sanders against Tampa Bay just seems scary. And Edmonds, I was between Connor and Edmonds, and Connor's just touchdown machine. So what's the point, really?
Yeah, I was looking at Edmonds as because he's a little bit cheaper. I was looking at him as a potential guy to kind of put in there. And then I was also looking at the Kansas City running backs, but it's so hard to predict who's going to get all the work, like going to get the work that produces fantasy points. So I stayed out of that, even though Pittsburgh is going to get demolished and Kansas City is going to put up a ton of points.
Yeah, I was like considering Damian Williams, but he got hurt last week, and I was worried about or Darrell Williams, or is it Damian Williams? And I was just considering, they're going to go up, they're going to run the ball, and then also they just pass the ball a lot to Darrell. But the injuries, it's scary seeing all these Qs, IRs, doubtfuls, and all that kind of stuff. Even though it might not mean all that much. All right, are you ready to head over to a receiver?
Yep.
All right. So receiver, I stacked Derek Carr with Renfro just because he seems to be the favorite target, and I feel like in the playoffs he's going to depend on him more than anything, and he's pretty cheap. Then I went with Deebo Samuel just because Dallas struggles with slot guys, and Debo's just crazy. Can't really go wrong with him. He's expensive, but not that bad. And then I went with Odell Beckham just because it seems like Stafford really just throws to him in tight situations when he's like under pressure, and he's been getting touchdowns. So if you can get just a touchdown from him, and it's only 5,100, he's a lot cheaper than Renfro. It's really not a bad situation there.
Makes sense. I also went with Renfro because I just think that he is a solid base receiver. I don't think that he's going to hurt you with anything, and he's not overly priced or anything. I did make room in my roster to make sure that I could fit Cooper Kupp in there because he's going to probably be the number one receiver on the week. He's unstoppable.
Yeah.
And then I also wanted a stack, but because of Cooper Kupp, I needed to make some cuts, and I went with Cedric Wilson. He's had a touchdown the past 2 weeks. I don't think he'll have a multi-touchdown game like he did last week, but I think he definitely has a good chance at finding his way into the end zone and just having a solid week all around. So,
yeah, I feel like I've seen him hit going in a touchdown the last like a couple times the last couple weeks. So it's like he seems to come in whenever Gallup's out, and he's still out. So that's a good pick. Moving on to tight ends, I tried to not spend big here. I went with Zach Ertz just because he gets a lot of targets, and he seems like a good money pick, I guess, in terms of what he's going for. Who did you suit up, and who else were you looking at?
So with my roster, since I spent up on both Joe Mixon and Cooper Kupp, I had to basically just go with what was available. And the most expensive tight end that was available was Hunter Henry for me. I don't love it, but he has a good chance of falling in the end zone. So that's just what I'm hoping for. I'm not really expecting much out of that position.
Yeah, if you just get a touchdown of it, it's all pretty much worth it. And Mac Jones, that's one of his favorite targets, so definitely not going to Jonas Smith, I don't think.
Crazy stat on the season because it hit me. Rob Gronkowski finished as the number 5 tight end in overall points, and he missed 6 games.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many games did he play? 12.
I guess he only missed 5, but one of those games he didn't play. Like really, like he came back for like a play and left. So
Yeah.
he played 6 like he played 6 fewer games than like the rest of the league and finished as the number 5 tight end.
He just had that insane start to begin the season. It was just crazy.
And like once he came back from injury, like he was perfectly fine, like a top 5 tight end, like every single week.
Yeah, and all the other injuries to the receivers, and then AB leaving keeps more touches for him. And then flex was tough for me because I was low on cash, and I'm not crazy about my pick, but I picked Sony Michel because I was surprised by how low he is. He has got a low like point total per week, but I mean he seems to be the guy right now in LA. And Arizona doesn't have a great rush defense the last couple of weeks. There's talk that J.J. Watt actually might return this week, so that would be a not so great thing for my lineup. But if J.J. Watt doesn't come back, I'd be pretty confident Sonny Michel can get at least like 10 points and put up some nice numbers.
I went with Ramondre Stevenson. He's just been getting a ton of he gets like a surprising amount of work for being the number 2 running back. And all I need is for him to just steal one goal line carry and end up in the end zone. And Buffalo, their defense is weakest at run defense. So you're going to beat them, and it's New England. They're going to run the ball probably about 40, 45 times in this game. And they're not going to give Harris 45 carries.
Yeah, I was like considering Stevenson and the running backs instead of Connor just to keep my stuff low. He's just they really diversify how much they give the ball out, and he's just been a surprise all year. I mean, even the preseason it was awesome. So really, I think he's got a really low floor for a backup. Yeah. So who did you look for at defense?
I went with the Chiefs because, like, it's the best play.
Yeah.
The Chiefs have been playing pretty solid defense outside of, like, that one game against the Chargers where Jones was out. And Pittsburgh is going to get demolished.
Yeah, I think just it's the highest floor. That was for me, and then if they can get a couple turnovers, they could get above 10. There are like other picks. I mean, Bills, I guess, are like a solid pick, but it's scary going against the Patriots. The Bucks are probably the best pick, but you never know. There's something about that game that it says on paper that the Bucks should dominate, but something about the Eagles just kind of scare me. And I just don't trust that Cowboys San Francisco game. It scares me.
The Steelers are projected for the fewest points by Vegas this week. They're projected 16.75 points right now. So
yeah, when your quarterback says they don't think they're going to win in their pregame presser, it doesn't bode well for your team. Yeah. All right.
The other defense I was looking at was the Rams because I don't know why, but they're the second highest priced defense on FanDuel, and they're like 8th here. Yeah.
Basically the bottom.
Yeah, they're like at the bottom. So I just thought that they were a nice steal for value if I really needed to go cheaper. The Rams was the defense I was looking at.
Yeah, when you're going against the Cardinals have like a weird offense where they were just absurd and now they're sort of inconsistent. I mean, both the Cardinals and the Rams are just sort of floating and weirdly dipping and up and down. It's hard to have really any confidence in either team. But okay, so we've got both of our daily picks in. We're going to go over our preseason brackets and see how our predictions went. And I got mine pulled up right here. I did pretty well for the AFC picking the teams, I guess. I picked the Dolphins. They got close. Titans I had pretty high. I had the Raiders, which was the surprise pick, baby. And then Ravens and Browns, a lot of people had them. The Ravens would have made the playoffs if Jackson stayed healthy, but they just got injury killed. And then I've had the Browns going.
They got injury killed the whole year. Like, look at their running back core. Like, they couldn't play as their identity the entire season.
their left tackle Stanley, and they traded Brown thinking Stanley would come back, and then Stanley couldn't come back all year. But I had the Browns taking it to the championship. Had to believe in the Browns, and constant disappointment. We were both big on the football team winning the division. That didn't
Yeah.
work out. And I had the Seahawks going for a last hurrah. That did not happen. But the Niners, I picked. The Saints were very close, and I thought the Saints, if Winston stayed healthy, might have been able to sneak in. But I had the Packers taking it versus the Rams, and that's going to ring true later. But not a great. The Browns sort of made this look ugly. But besides that, I thought it did
It's okay. Mine's
okay.
ugly still.
Yeah. So I'll move on to you, and I'll let you explain yours right here.
Yeah.
You-
So we both were on.
Oh,
We
shit.
both thought. Oh,
My bad. It's gonna my Chrome crashes whenever I hit the prep button. So
nice.
one
I will go
second.
ahead and pull it up on my phone, and uh, I'll at least be able to.
I'll restore it real quick. It's basically ready. Share screen. Hit the bracket. All right.
Okay. Yeah. So my AFC was pretty bad. I missed the Browns. I missed on the Ravens by a lot. But I mean, they just had so many injuries. Like I can't even hate on myself for that. The Dolphins, honestly, if you just get rid of the first half of their season, they were fantastic. The Colts, I don't. They should be in the playoffs right now. I don't understand that just complete collapse against Jacksonville. And I had the Bills in, so yeah, my big misses were just like the Raven was just the AFC North. That was my big miss.
Yeah, I give you credit for having the Titans that high though. At 2.
Yeah. And then in the NFC, I got the Rams. I thought the football team. I don't think anyone saw that defense falling apart the way they did from last year to this year. But they did. 49ers, I got right. Not, I thought they'd win the division, but they did not. But they did have a good season. I picked the right 3 NFC West teams. I will say that. And then I had the Saints in there over, I guess, the Eagles. But I don't think anyone was picking the Eagles unless you were an Eagles fan.
Yeah. Even if you're an Eagles fan, I don't think.
And then yeah, Packers are 4th, but that's just personal bias that I really always underpredict the Packers.
And then
And
you
you
have
told-
your Super Bowl pick still alive is the Bucks. Better than
yeah,
mine.
they're not my Super Bowl pick anymore.
Okay.
Spoiler.
All right. So we can move into current playoff predictions. And I have
Yes.
mine up right here. Let me minimize you a little bit.
You want to just do game by game, and I can go over mine at the same time as yours?
Yeah, sure. So let's start with the Bengals and the Raiders. I want to pick the Raiders, but I'm gonna pick the Bengals. I think they're just the better team, and the Raiders are. I did not expect the Raiders to even get that high of a seed, 5. That seems really high. They're just sort of they just win it out, but I don't think they're gonna win it out today.
Yeah. I also took the Bengals in that game. I just think that I just don't like the Raiders. Like I don't like that team and how they perform. I'm just shocked by them.
Yeah, they just sort of hang in there, and it's not not a lot of confidence. Doesn't give you a lot of confidence. The next one will probably be pretty quick. The Chiefs over the Steelers.
Chiefs.
Yep. We can just move on to the Bills versus the Patriots. I think just the Bills, we saw their second game, took the Patriots a crazy game to take out the Bills. I think they'll win it out, but I think maybe you have a different idea.
I took the Patriots just because, like, I know Buffalo demolished them in the second game, but I mean, if the Patriots just like that defense can't shut down the Bills offense, like it is doable. And the Bills haven't really been clicking on offense personally. Um, like they should have demolished a lot of the teams at the end of the season a lot more than they did. Um, that game against the Falcons was disgusting.
Yeah, and it
Um,
should have been closer than what the score said. The
and
Bills are just one of those teams.
the Patriots aren't going to turn the ball over. Like they're going to probably avoid having Mac Jones throw as much as possible, and they're just going to run the ball. And the Bills don't have a great run defense, so
Yeah, the Bills are a lot like the top teams the whole year. They just sometimes they show up and sometimes they don't, and whether they show up that day or Bill Belichick gets in Sean McDermott's head again, uh, I think it's totally possible the Patriots win. But at this point, I hate the Patriots. My bias won't allow me to pick them, to be honest. Um, so we're
let's
gonna move.
just continue with the AFC.
Oh, let's go. Let's finish the AFC. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
good. So let's start from the top and go Bengals Titans. I think the Titans have done a great job, um, but I don't know. All year I've just never really bought into them. They're just kind of like a shaky team. It feels like to me, and they've always surprised me when they win. So I'm going to take the Bengals as the young Bucks to head into the AFC Championship.
I actually have, because of seeding, I have the Titans playing the Patriots, and I have the Titans winning that game. I just think with the Titans getting their weapons back, it's going to be hard to stop them.
Yeah, I think the Titans do exactly what the Patriots do, but just better. So it's just a tough matchup for the Patriots in that regard. And Vrabel seems to have Belichick's number a little bit. So my second seeding, I have the Bills and Chiefs, and I think that this is probably going to go out the same way. I think it'll be a little bit closer than last year in the AFC Championship, but I think the Chiefs are just the stronger team than the Bills. Just a more consistent offense, even though neither are really that consistent. But I'll be taking the Chiefs there.
I have the Chiefs and the Bengals, and I have the same outcome as the last time they played, and I have the Bengals pulling off the upset. Um, they've shown that they can do it. Um, the Bengals on offense are a pretty incredible team, just all around. So I think that they'll be able to beat the Chiefs whenever it comes to the offensive shootout, because I just don't think that the Chiefs have quite as many like weapons for Mahomes, especially with Tyreek Hill really struggling lately.
Yeah, Hill and Kelsey not being totally healthy, and then that's my next matchup, which is the Chiefs and the Bengals. And I'm really close to picking the Bengals here, but something about them doing it twice in like a month. I just don't really see it. Obviously, this sort of depends on how healthy the Chiefs are, because I don't. And if they're not healthy, there's no way I would pick the Chiefs. But yeah, I'm still gonna hold on to the Chiefs. Call me a front runner or whatever. But uh, taking the leap all the way to the Super Bowl in year two, it can happen. We saw the Eagles do it, and I think what was it the Rams that did it in Goff's second year. But I just think the Chiefs are too seasoned, I guess, in that big stage. So on to your Bengals versus Titans.
Titans, and I have the Titans because
Really?
I look back at how dominant the Titans were during that stretch when Derrick Henry was healthy, and that's what they're getting back. They're getting back Derrick Henry, and even if Derrick Henry can't take the same workload, Foreman's been pretty solid as a like basically backup, and that's what his role is going to be. So, and then AJ Brown healthy, Julio healthy, caught his first touchdown of the season, and I just think they're going to pull off. I think they'll be able to control the ball and keep it out of the Bengals' hands and really force that game. So I have the Titans in the Super Bowl.
That would be a trip. It'd be interesting. I would not root against that, but so we go off to the NFC, and we have the Buccaneers versus the Eagles here. And I'm gonna pick the Bucks just
Buccaneers.
because they match up really well, and it's the Bucks. I think the Eagles might be able to make it interesting, but come on, you know. Next is the Cardinals and Rams, and I'm really on the fence with this one, but I think the Rams are going to
Yeah.
pull it out just because that's the way it sort of went that last time they went against each other. But the Cardinals being so good on the road sort of scares me, and neither of these teams I'm super confident in.
Yeah, both of these teams have like two different teams that can show up. In my first bracket, I actually had the Rams make it to the Super Bowl, but it's just so hard to pick them. Even though I will pick them in this game, but it's just like it all comes down to whether Stafford decides to throw 2 or 3 interceptions or not, and you can't really predict that. But I'm gonna assume that he doesn't this game and pick the Rams.
Yeah, it's they're just a shaky team. Cowboys Niners. I'm picking the Niners over the Cowboys. I just think running them down their throat. I think the Niners they're a scary team. I think that's like near the end of the year, everyone was basically saying we don't want to play the Niners. We don't play the Niners, and the Cowboys can look really scary, but they mostly have just been looking scary against NFC East rivals and just weaker teams, throwing up 50
Yeah.
burgers on them. But the Niners are a different team, you know. It's going to be a little bit more of a dogfight. So what do you have here?
I also have the 49ers. I look like the Raiders aren't like a great team. Like the Cowboys got blown out by the Broncos.
Yeah.
Like they're the number 3 seed because they got to play the Eagles twice, the Giants twice, and the Reds and the football team twice.
Yeah, they're not like people love to talk about them because there's such a big media team. But I'm not sure if they're really that strong of a team when it comes down to it. And they lost to they played at home against the Cardinals, and the Cardinals are not like no pushover, but they didn't look great against the Cardinals. And I'm really like over the past 5 weeks, they played Washington, the Giants, Washington, the Cardinals, and Philly, and they won all the NFC East games. So it's not like they've been playing tough teams, and the NFC West is a whole different breed. Um, so we're on the same sides as that, and I think we have pretty much all the same matchups here.
Yep,
So
same matchups.
Bucks Rams. I think my heart says Rams and my head says Bucks, but I'm gonna go with my heart just because I hate the Bucks and I want them out. Um, and I think the Rams have a good matchup against them. So I'm gonna take the Rams, hoping that that plays out.
I have the Buccaneers in this game just because, as I said, it's so hard to pick Stafford to not throw multiple interceptions in a game. And uh, I just think that they'll pull that out based on the fact that they're just a better team.
Yeah, and especially with the Bucks' strong run defense, it's really going to be on Stafford, and if he buckles here, which is what he's done most of his career, even though he's been on the Lions, but still, it's what he's done most of his career. So it's really not a high confidence pick here for me for the Rams. You got the Bucks, I got the Rams, and now we got the Niners Packers, and that's another scary game as the Niners have just dominated Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. But I'm going to pick the Packers. I don't think this is the same Niners team they've gone against. It seems like they've been sort of pulling rabbits out of their hat, out of a hat at times. And I think the Packers have just been so solid this year. It does scare me that they seem to just sort of eke out wins sometimes against lesser competition. So I'm not thinking it's going to be a blowout or anything. But I think the Packers pull this one out. It would be a horrific end to Rodgers' time in Green Bay.
I will say I do have the I hate the Packers bias. Love Aaron Rodgers, hate the Packers. And I'd be perfectly okay with this being an absolutely demolishing of Aaron Rodgers. And that's kind of what I see happening. Last time we saw this matchup in the playoffs, it was at Lambeau, and the 49ers ran for like 200, 300 yards on him that day. And I think that's going to happen again. So
It's definitely possible. The Packers are probably glad they have Mike Pettin gone, so they got a new defense coordinator and they got a little bit more size up front. But the Niners' run offense hasn't been as consistently awesome, but it's still awesome with Debo and if Mitchell's healthy. So these are the NFC is always tough, and this is tough again. I feel like to pick. It's going to be like a week by week and seeing what the injury report almost looks like for some of these teams. So we got opposite ways for both of these. I got the Packers and the Rams. You got the Niners and the Bucks, and I'm going to go with the Packers over the Rams. I just think the Packers are just more seasoned, more solid team. I feel like it's going to look a lot like last year's Packers Rams game, which was one score game for a while, and then near the end of the second half, the Packers pulled out and took the lead there. I think Stafford's better than Goff, but it's not a huge difference here. So you got the Bucks and the Niners. So who do you have going out of there?
I have the Niners winning, even though the matchup would say that the Bucks would win with that solid run defense and them being more of a pass-heavy team and 49ers being weaker on the pass. But I don't know. I really like Debo this year. I think that having that type of player on offense really just allows you to kind of do whatever you want on offense. And they have multiple of those guys. Like you have Kittle also, who like you can make an entire game plan around Kittle and win. And I know Brandon Ayuk's not on that level yet, but I mean he's had 100-yard games the past couple weeks. And I just think that Shanahan will be able to come up with a game plan that they'll be able to figure out a way to make their run game work, even with the Buccaneers playing solid defense.
Yeah, the matchups do say the Bucks, but there's something about the Bucks. They say they have the great run defense, blah blah. They can't get clogged or stopped by an O line, but the Niners O line probably capable of doing that. Trent Williams is having like an absurd year in terms of like PFF stats. They're saying it's like the greatest offensive line year ever, especially in run blocking. So I feel like they could, basically bowl over the Bucks. I think it's totally a possible thing. And I think Shanahan's a good enough coach to go against Bowles and go against Arians to win that out. I would hope that that's the case. So you've got a pretty interesting Super Bowl here with the Titans and the Niners, whereas mine is pretty boring with Packers Chiefs. I played it safe. What can I say? But basically, I got the Packers and the Chiefs, and I think the Packers are going to pull it out over the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs. I think it's really a coin flip game, but I think the Packers just have a more consistent team throughout the whole year, and I think they could pull it out. I know Hinty would be upset with this, but
I would barf.
Yeah, but so I'm excited to hear who you think of the Niners and Titans, but I think I know who.
I am extremely excited for if this ends up being the Super Bowl because I love like that run game just back and forth, and I think it'd be so much fun. But I just think that the Titans have the better running back with Derrick Henry being back, and I think that the Titans would be able to win that game.
Whoa, I was expecting the Niners. That would be brutal for Shanahan, but Titans. It could happen that they're the team that I think most of the public have just completely disregarded, even though they were going off that like 5 and crazy win streak where they would beat the Chiefs, like all those great teams, and so they could definitely do it. The question with me with the Titans is Derrick Henry going to be Derrick Henry when he comes back, and that's really what it comes down to, I think.
It's definitely a question, but I mean at the same time, like this team. Even with all the injuries that happened like this year, like you gotta think that injury happened in week 7. So they played the majority of their season without him. And I mean, they still were able to pull off that 1 seed. And it's not like they were undefeated whenever he got hurt and they just kind of like snuck in with like the number 1 seed. Like they finished 12-5. And I think they either had 1 or 2 losses at that point, which means 10 weeks, so like 7-3 in the back half without him.
Yeah.
And they played games against. I think one of those games was against the Patriots. After that, and they ended up winning. Like so, they still played good teams. They just didn't play, the Bills and Chiefs and those teams. So I think that they've just built a solid squad there that basically is just outperforming what is on that roster from whenever you look at it. And I think that they'll probably do that through the playoffs.
Yeah. I think the scariest part with the Titans is also obviously it's like injuries for everything, but if Julio and AJ Brown can basically just stay healthy, because the worst part, the worst of the Titans that we saw is when they lost to like the Texans, I think. Um, and it was basically
Yeah.
like they had no one, and Tannehill was dying and throwing interceptions left and right, and basically that's what's gonna be. If they're at full strength, they can basically run with anyone and pretty much control the game against anyone. So I'm kind of rooting for your playoff bracket because it seems more fun. Um, but anything else you want to go over here?
I think that's all I got for this week. Um, Next week we'll recap the games and move forward with our predictions. Hopefully that
Yeah.
mine are intact and you lost one game.
Oh, we only have difference on the Patriots and Bills.
Yeah.
Watch it all get blown up as the Cardinals win, the Cowboys win. All right.
Eagles make an upset over the Bucks. Steelers beat Kansas City.
Steelers v Kansas City. Nah, that's not happening. All right,
If that
guys.
happens, Pittsburgh's gonna erupt.
Yeah, I don't want that to happen. All right. Well, we will see you guys next week.